Right, so welcome back to the channel, and we've had a lot of interest on the Q&A. A lot of you guys have sent some questions in. Obviously, you can appreciate I'm not going to answer them all in one go, but it won't only be the only Q&A session that I ever do. So I'll answer a few different ones for you. So the first one is what cue do you use and what is the spec? So I'm quite stubborn in this area. I had a cue bought for me by my father for Christmas in 1991. It cost me £25. It was a Jimmy White cue, painted on butt, a BCE one, and Jimmy was really obviously amazingly popular in the late 80s, early 90s, and he was one of the very first players I remember having a 3/4 joint cue with a cue on extension. At that point, it was like a two-piece cues with like the kind of Hoover extension, effectively, the slip-on. And so I had a Jimmy White cue, shall we say, for Christmas in 1991, and so over time it started to split and had all different issues with it. I then converted it into a one-piece cue, so I kept the shaft of the cue, which was really important for me, and turn it into a one-piece. It took a little bit of time to get used to it because the cue was obviously stronger with being a one-piece. The wood was stronger than what it was originally. 2012, I had the work done. It's 56 inches long. It's a little bit shorter than standard because I like to hold the cue at the very back. I play predominant with an Elkmaster tip, but not always. The balance point, I couldn't tell you. I haven't got a clue. It did start off at 9.2, but as I said, this was, some 32 years ago now. And it's now at an 8.6, which is probably a fraction thin, really. The reason I say that, for my preference, is I'd like to go a little bit thicker, because I feel like I can find the middle of the white with a slightly bigger tip. But yeah, no issues with that. I'm actually sponsored by Tiger Cues, who have made me various different cues, which I do like. I do like the cues. However, I'm a little bit stubborn. The one that I've played with for so long, that thankfully Daryl at Tiger Cues is really understanding, and lets me sort of continue with my own. Which leads me on to the next question. What would you advise for a new cue, and how much should you spend? Well, of course, I'm gonna advise a Tiger cue. Daryl's exceptionally good at what he does. I think price range is down to the individual. I think £100, £150 might be good for a starter cue. But having said that in mind, if you take care of it, you're supposed to have it for your whole career. You're not really supposed to be swapping and changing cues. I only changed my cue because it had to be done. I had to get it repaired. It needed repairing. But as I said, I've had the top half of the cue, the shaft of the cue, for 31, 32 years. And the reason for that is because that's where the hit is. That is what I understand of the hit of the cue. And yeah, otherwise it wouldn't have been tampered with at all. So if you consider £500 expensive for something that you're going to have for 30 years, in actual fact, I mean, it doesn't even equate to £20 a year. So yeah, I don't think there's any price plan on it. I think it's down to the individual, what your finances are. I'd recommend getting a decent one though, because you're going to have to change it and have to get used to a new one again, which effectively I had to a point, albeit I did keep the top half. So yeah, it really is down to the individual, how much you want to spend. There's some really good cue makers out there. But as I said, I would recommend Daryl at Tiger Cues as highly as anyone else. So that would be my answer on that. Next question. Will the cue ball still spin when it hits the second cushion? You see, when you're playing with spin, it's a really strange thing, because it's how much spin that you want to play and how much spin you're putting on the ball. So the more spin that you put on the ball, the longer the spin is going to stay on it. I mean, it's just the same as backspin. The more backspin that you put on the ball, the more the ball is going to come back. Top spin, the more it's going to go forward. What it does do when it hits the cushion is it picks up speed. So sometimes I would play with spin, not necessarily to change the line of the shot, but I would play with it with some spin and allow for that on the object ball, because I want the cue ball to pick up speed when it hits the cushion. Maybe I wanted to travel over a certain amount of distance without kind of clubbing the ball. We talked about this ball being smaller and lighter than the object balls. So effectively, when you're playing through the ball, there's this resistance first before it goes forward. So I may cheat the potting angle a little bit and try and hit the object ball a little bit thinner, which means it kind of goes through the ball a little bit nicer and it hasn't got the same resistance. So yeah, it's probably about as good as I can do on that one. What longevity do you think you can put into cue sports? The reason I'm asking is I'm near 60 and can still give a good game. Well, it's not physical, really. There's the term pool fit that I use quite a lot. So I recently played a big race with a legendary Filipino player, Francisco Bustamante, and he's probably anything between 13 and 15 years older than me, I would think. But I succumb to the fatigue first, not because he's necessarily any fitter. Like as I said, I was certainly younger than him, but he's so pool fit. They've played so many hours of pool in the Philippines. They've played huge sets, days and days and days. They'll play a challenge set, you know, a first to 20, and then they'll go, and straight after they say, come on, go again. You know, whereas I might feel a bit like, well, I'll play again tomorrow. So I don't think that's necessarily an issue. I think as long as your eyesight is okay, you know, I think you can play till whenever you feel fit enough to play. I mean, it has to be an individual thing. One 60-year-old man or woman is going to be in a different health place mindset than another 50-year-old, 60-year-old man or woman. So if you're fit and healthy, you feel young, and your eyesight's good, and you've still got the enthusiasm you once had, I would imagine that you're probably not going to play as well at 60 as what you did at 30, but that's not to suggest that you still can't play to a high level. Haven't really got a correct answer on that, only really an opinion that I couldn't state as fact. So that would be the best I could do on that one. What we got here? As a youngster, I was half decent and could break and clear up. Alas, as an older player, I've developed a sad trend. I stand behind, and as soon as I address the cue ball, I couldn't stop myself instantly striking the cue ball. Suppose it's similar to dartitis. Have you any advice? Well, I haven't played darts enough to get dartitis, even though I did play a lot as a youngster. But I almost was on the border of having cueitis in my late teens, early 20s, and I actually got very, very fearful of it. I was a real big fan of Eric Bristow as a youngster, and he got dartitis. And he probably never really shook it off, you know. And you know, a lot of snooker players have had it, particularly with the rest, playing with the rest. Snooker players have had it. I felt like there was a time when it could happen, so I basically just put my cue down and just didn't play for about 3 or 4 months, and hoped that when I picked it back up, it went away. Fortunately for me, that was the case, because I was definitely getting to the stage where I was kind of pausing at the backswing for so long. It was getting a little bit scary. In terms of what you're saying is a little bit of a different thing. It sounds a bit more like kind of a bit of anxiety, a bit anxious to kind of get on with it, if for want of a better word. You know, maybe that little bit of composure, that just little kind of time out, so to speak. You know, I know nerves can bring that on with certain players, and anxiety. So I haven't got an exact answer for you, other than, you know, just try and take that little bit of extra time. Next question. What would your number one advice be to improve at pool? Practice, application, preparation, how much time you're devoting to it, how much time you can devote to it. And I know when I was a youngster, you couldn't get me off the table, But certainly when I had the opportunity to watch players play, I'd always go and watch them play, the Keith Brewers, Lee Kendall and Darren Appleton and the likes. I would always make an effort to go and watch them play to see if I could learn something. Now, you're so spoilt in this day and age because back then there was no, YouTube or internet, so to speak, in terms of you can basically watch any player now whenever you want, and you can watch hours and hours and hours and hours of footage. So if ever you get a chance to watch the top players play, take that opportunity. Take what you want from it, dismiss what you don't want from it. But I never had that opportunity. When I wanted to go and watch somebody play, I had to physically go and watch them play. Now, as I said, with YouTube and the likes of the live streaming of the pro tournaments and everything else, you're so spoilt with and of course coaching videos like you must be watching now to listen to me giving you the answer. I mean, this was very few and far between when I was playing as a youngster. So yeah, practice, hard work, travel to tournaments, invest a little bit into it, invest some time into it. You get various different coaches now that was never really around 25 years ago when I was just hitting the circuit. Hardly anybody was ever doing that, if anybody. So you've got coaching opportunities now as well, and YouTube videos such as this one.